Talktainment Radio Worldwide South. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go, the world's greatest radio. You are now in touch with the Compensatory Concept with me as your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and of course, Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., who is live on the line from Washington, D.C. And this is radio the way it should be heard. To get in contact with the show, you can call 1-877-932-9766, or you can actually Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. Also, you can go to the YouTube channel, type in Talktainment, and then type in Talktainment number 2, scroll down to radio. You're right there. Hit the Listen Live button. We would prefer, though, you go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage, click Listen Live, you're there. Hit the subscribe and like buttons to those two sites. And also, you can also go to Facebook.com/Talktainment. And you can hear a replay of the whole show. We are all over the world. I get letters, Gmails from South Africa, so-called French Guiana, all over the world. I don't think I've gotten any from Japan, but anyway, all over the world as we deal with this global problem of racism, which is white supremacy. Donations, I got the paper right here. We need only $750 more, and then we're through with that for a while, so we could get that out the way. And today's topic is going to be a very important topic. In fact, I don't think there's ever been a show that we have not mentioned this topic, but today we're going to hone in on the topic, and it is the code book. The code book is what we're going to focus in on today. So let me introduce to some and present to others, because we do have people that are new to the program every week. Let me introduce you to Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Mr. Fuller, live from Washington, D.C., how are you today?
I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Very, very good. Okay, Mr. Fuller, we talk about this all the time, and of course at the 45-minute mark of the program, we always have you speak directly about the book. But the book is called the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. It is affectionately known as the code book. But what we want to hone in on today, focus in on today, is the importance of this book. I consider it one of 3 books that should be on everybody's paper, desk at home. But what is the importance of this particular book, the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept?
Well, I think it's important because we need a code book. We need many code books. We need code being written every day, as long as there's a problem every day, because it's supposed to be about problem solving. That's basically what it is. And every problem that's ever been solved, this is the concept, every problem that has ever been solved had a code. Code meaning specific way of going about solving that specific problem. That's all it is. A specific way of going about the things that you do, things that you don't do, in order to solve a specific problem. That's if you're cooking some food, it's a way to go about doing it. It's the best way and the worst way in order to come out with the most constructive product. Now, for solving the race problem, it's the same thing. It's something that so far it doesn't appear to have, something that black people do not appear to have, and that is a code for solving the race problem. We just throw things up in there and close our eyes and hope that everything comes down and fit right into the place where it ought to fit. And we have no set way of going about doing anything when it comes to solving the race problem, and that's why it hasn't been solved. The people who say that, include myself, that we're trying to solve it, we don't know how to solve it. That's why it hasn't been solved. We haven't looked at it. I mean, and seen it the way that it really is. That's the first thing you have to do when you solve any problem. Look at it and see how it's put together. If you're going to fix something that's broken, you first of all, if it's a lamp that's broken, or a piece of furniture, or a piano, or a vehicle, first thing you do is look at it. And when you look at it, see what the problem is. You have a vehicle. The vehicle is made to transport people or things from one place to another. Now, the vehicle, for some reason, does not move. It'll sit there forever and ever until it just rots away on its own, because all things go away in time. But you got to get somewhere right now. And you want this particular vehicle, presumably, fixed right now, because you have things to do right now. Not 1,000 years from now, not next generation, like a lot of people are prone to say, well, the next generation will take. You got to get to work today. I mean, you have signed up to get to work today, or if you run your own business and whatnot, you got to get there to that business. Now, you're using this vehicle to get there. So therefore, if the vehicle isn't operating and you depend on it to operate, you should raise the hood if that's where you think the problem is, or look at the tires if that's where you think the problem is, or wherever you think the problem is. It might be that the heater isn't working and it's very, very cold outside. It's snowing maybe, okay? And you got a long drive and you want that heater to be working. Well, you don't absolutely depend on the vehicle, the heater to be working for the vehicle to move, but it may be so frigid that the ride may be so difficult that you might even freeze to death before you get where you're going. All right? I'm just giving these kind of ragged illustrations to tell about what a code is for. A code is for solving problems. So you figure out, how can I fix this heater? Can anybody fix it? Do what is necessary. It's a set way of doing it. Anybody who is in refrigeration or whatnot say, you just don't go about doing it any old way. You just don't grab a hammer and start beating on it. That's not going to solve the problem. You think that hitting the heater with a hammer is the correct way to fix it? Well, you just might have to shake it up a little and then it'll start. Well, if you do that and it works, then hit it. I mean, because it worked. You hit it a couple of times and it started. But if that doesn't do it, then you have to examine it to see what else you can do. And it's the same way with fixing problems between people. You try one or two things or 1 or 200 things, and you say, that didn't do it. We thought it would do it. It kind of helped out a little bit. We got the engine started, and we were able to run 2 or 3 miles down the road, but I got a 10-mile trip. So now, hey, it's something, we got to repair this so that we can make the whole trip. That's how that works. Rather than get stuck on, well, every 2 miles we have to stop and work on it for 3 or 4 hours. That's not going to work. And that's what we have been doing with the race problem. That's why I wrote a code book that's designed to send us in the direction, I hope, of thinking that what we need is something that's exact. Exact meaning what? That every time you do it, it works. It solves the problem. Whatever the problem is, it takes care of. Problems come up all day. Small problems, larger problems, medium-sized problems. They can all add up to the big problem, and the big problem is the race problem of this entire planet. That's the biggest problem that people of color have. They don't have a problem bigger than that.
Okay. In that, why don't we as black people recognize that we are victims of racism?
Why is it that we do recognize?
No, don't recognize that we are victims of racism.
Because it's painful. And we're also told, directly and indirectly, sometimes by other black people, oh, don't go around all day thinking that you're a victim. Oh, they're coming on with that victim stuff. I mean, no, don't look at it that way. You look at it that way, that's self-defeating. I mean, that kills all your ambition and whatnot, that you are a victim. Well, if you're a prisoner of war, and you were born as a prisoner of war, it's logical, getting back to the car analogy, to answer the question, are you indeed a prisoner of war? If you're a prisoner of war, I mean, you're behind bars, you're behind a barricade. You have soldiers walking around looking at you all day with rifles and whatnot. And you say, I am in captivity. I'm a prisoner. Now, do you say, oh no. I mean, no. I mean, those guys with guns and whatnot, that don't mean nothing. And me being restricted to this particular area, that doesn't mean anything. Me not being able to have access to this and access to that, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, I'm looking upon myself as being a victim, as being a prisoner of war. I'm not a prisoner. I'm like one of those poems said long time ago, stone walls do not a prison make. Now iron bars a cage, because I have freedom in my soul. Oh, well, you can look at it that way. Every prisoner of war can look at it that way. Well, I got freedom in my soul. The people in the so-called Continental Army, George Washington and company, they could have looked at it that way. Oh, the King of England is taxing us to death, but hey, it's all in how we look at it. We got freedom in our souls, so we're not taking up arms against the king, okay? Because we got freedom in our souls. Oh, that's just a decision that you can make. And you're getting taxed to death, and taxed to death, and taxed to death, but we got freedom in our souls. Harriet Tubman. Well, I ain't thinking about going up north or no other place. I'm not going to try to make things better, because it can't get no better than this. Why? Because I got freedom in my soul. All right. If you want to look at it that way, look at it that way. Be homeless up under the bridge somewhere. It's snowing. You got lice crawling all over you, but you got freedom in your soul. That's one way you can look at it if you're homeless. You've been put out of your house. You're up under the bridge. It's terrible under there.
But you got freedom in your soul.
But you got freedom in your soul. Now, that's one way you can look at it. But the code says, can it be better than this? And why isn't it better than this? Why is it not only an improvement, which is a word that a lot of people who have problems say, but why isn't it the way that it ought to be and can be overnight? Why isn't it that way? Now, that's the code position.
Yes, sir.
Taking the position, is it possible? And if it's possible, that's what you should aim for according to the counter-racist code.
Alrighty.
The counter-racist philosophy.
Okay. TalkTameRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge, worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news and lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. So here's three I'm going to share with you. The first one is Your Time to Travel. Brother tie us in on that one. Talking Sports Plus with Mr. Bobby and the Don Carina Show. Now, these programs are exclusive to TalkTameRadio.com. And all you have to do is go to the TalkTameRadio.com homepage, click on programs, and there is a list, a current list of the programming that Talktainment Radio has to offer. You need to give them a listen and see if you like it or if you don't like it. But you're not going to know, just like this code book, you're not going to know unless you try it. All this from TalkTainmentRadio.com, radio the way it should be heard. Phone lines are open, so are the Gmails, they're open. 1-877-932-9766 is the number that you can call. The numero 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, is the Gmail address that you can get to me if you'd like. We are talking about the importance of a code book. Before I go to the Gmails, Mr. Fuller, in this code book or manual, the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept, I've noticed that you also have, in addition to that, a word guide, knowing the importance of all different kinds of words and phrases. Why is that important, or why do you have that there?
Because words form ideas. Inventors have to use words to explain what they're doing when they invent something. Words are tools. Tools for what? Tools for what? To communicate ideas, viewpoints. Communicate ideas and viewpoints for what? In order to get things done that need doing. These are the correct use of words. Get things done that need doing in order to do what? Produce a constructive result. Mm-hmm. That's why words were invented in the first place. People would give sign language maybe, and that's a form of words with their fingers and whatnot. But or they would, just make a sound saying oomp, 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 which means move the rock up the hill. But they said, well, wait a minute, we're going to have to get it, I mean, everybody's just going around making sounds, but it takes too long for everybody to be on the same page about what every sound means. So maybe we better start doing something called writing, okay? And so everybody will study what is written. We'll make a mark on the side of a rock, and we'll say that this rock means this or means that. And we'll make another sign, we'll have one that's horizontal and one that's vertical. And the one that's horizontal, it means we will go to the river tomorrow. And the one that is vertical means we will go to the mountain tomorrow. And that might be how it all started off. And so, next thing you know, they had all kinds of symbols and signs or zeros or whatnot all over a whole lot of rocks. these are words. Words. That's what they call them. You can call them symbols or signs or words, but they're just a means of communicating ideas or giving directions about things to do or not do. And so that's how they came into being. That's how languages were formed.
Okay.
So we need a counter-racist language. All right? We have racism, and we have all the words in place that will help racism. We have very few words in place, orchestrated in place, words that are put where they ought to be and defined the way they ought to be in order to do what? Solve a problem.
Solve a problem.
Like all languages are supposed to be.
Okay.
So we need a counter-racist language.
Yes, sir.
Period.
Okay, let me take a phone call. Caller, you are on with Mr. Neely Fuller. Go ahead with your question.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. Excuse me, I'm a little under the weather. Mr. Fuller, I've been discouraged a lot lately. Just going through a lot of things and just trying to focus on a lot when it comes to me and learning to dismantle the system. And in my discouragement, I would just like to know, what is your compensatory definition of the word hope? Or do you have any advice of just encouragement? And that's my question.
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
Yes. That is to focus on what you're here for in the first place. And in my opinion, and this is just an opinion, we're here to solve problems. And what problem do we solve? We look at all the problems because there are thousands and millions of problems every day, all kinds. Small problems, medium-sized problems, trivial problems, gigantic problems. But then there's one major problem. And it says on the back of the textbook for victims of racism, both the word guide and the basic textbook, all of them. That's why I put it on the back, so it's just easy to turn the book over. Says no major problem. This is the second point on the back of the book.
Oh, I see it, yes.
No major problem that exists between the people of the known universe can be eliminated until racism is eliminated. Now, that's a flat statement. It's either true or false. That's the first thing you always want to do. When somebody makes a statement, the first thing you want to know about that statement, is it true or is it false? But I'm going to read it again. No major problem that exists between the people of the known universe can be eliminated until racism is eliminated. Now, in answer to your question, how do you have hope? You have hope because you consider that to be your assignment.
Yes.
That's what you were born for. You wasn't born to look forward to the next party.
Yes.
Which a lot of people think, a lot of black people, and I used to think that, I followed that song that was out when I was very, very young. And what was the name of that song? Well, I don't know the name of it, but it said, some people think the world was made for fun and frolic, and so do I, and so do I. It was a song that I sang as a very young person, and I heard other people singing it. Some people at the world may have been made for fun and frolic, but it's not full of fun and frolic when it comes to black people particularly. I mean, it's full of dread. Before you step out of your door, you're under siege. People breaking into your house. Somebody broke into your car last night. You're fixing to be evicted from the house that you're in or from wherever you happen to be. Move on. Hey, you're black. You're not supposed to be here. Get out. Get out and go where? Well, go somewhere. Well, where do I go? Well, go somewhere other than here. And then when you get to that somewhere other than here, they come and do what? Hey, get out. You're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be here. Well,
Thank you so much,
where you
Mr.
told me to
Fuller.
go.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm.
Yes, but this is, see, so you say, oh, these are the cards I have been dealt. And it ain't no such thing as fun in the cards I've been dealt. The fun is out. I'm not going to have any fun. Except I can come up with another definition, talking about words now, for fun. I'll have fun. My fun will be fighting this war against racism. And that's what gives me hope.
Okay.
So that's my assignment in capital letters. Because this is the conclusion I came to.
Okay.
Trying to escape your assignment is going to make you miserable.
Alrighty.
That's where the misery comes from. When you're not on your assignment, then you are destined to be miserable if you're black.
Okay.
In a world of white supremacy.
In the world of white supremacy. From the Gmails, Mark says this, Mr. Fuller, isn't the solution to racism is to teach young white people to unlearn what the system has been teaching them? These are the white people who will become adults. By the time they become adults, then they can try to solve this.
Sure. You just tell people the truth. That's it. People say, what is the world's biggest problem? And we go back to number 2 on the back of the book. You can't solve the world's problems. No Middle East problem. No problem with presidents telling lies. You can't solve any of those problems. That stuff is going to keep coming. Black people in welfare lines, black people on food stamps. This is going to go on forever. Forever and ever and ever and ever. Unless we have what? A code that we start practicing that can change this from what it is to what it should be and do it overnight. If we know what buttons to push, but we have to put the buttons there in the first place in order to push them. And that's in the form of a code, which we don't have. That's the missing link. We haven't been doing the things that will solve this problem. And where's the evidence? Is because the problem hasn't been solved. We haven't really put our shoulders to the wheel. We have made everything a priority except replacing the system of racism with the system of justice. And that's, and in answer to the question, that means, yes, you tell white people the truth. And you get them to tell you the truth. Starting with things like codification, this is a part of it. Because you got to start with truth. Black people don't want to hear the truth in many instances.
Could you repeat that again, please, Mr. Fuller?
Black people do not want to hear the truth, and they do not want white people to tell them the truth. They want white people to keep lying to them.
Why?
This is the truth. Because it feels good. It's like a drug. Tell me something to make me feel good. That's what black people are telling white people. And white people are saying, I can't stand you. I cannot stand you. I can't stand the sight of you. I hate to even look at you when you walk in. I want to throw up. A lot of white people feel that way. When I look at you black people, I want to throw up. It's all I can do to keep from throwing up.
Wow.
I'm looking for a bush to go somewhere and throw up. Just looking at you. Can't you understand that? We have to understand that. And we have to get them to say that.
Yes.
We have to get every white person who feels that way to say that. Then we're getting what? The truth.
Okay.
Because you cannot get codification without the truth. Now, we can start from there.
Okay.
I'm talking about without black people panicking like babies and running down the hall screaming because some white person used the N-word. You're supposed to be like ice.
Got to break it off right there, Mr. Fuller.
Like stone.
Okay.
Right.
TalkTainMenRadio.com. We go download the TalkTainMenRadio.com app to your cell phone or to your tablet. Podcasts are available. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. We're going to get more into the code book on refined racism on page 330 of the code of the word guide. That and more, your phone calls and Gmails coming up next here on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Let's see here. Mario, I'm going to have Mr. Fuller answer your question after I take this caller, and then we'll do some other things. Caller, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question, please?
Hi, greetings. This is Aaron from Spain.
Hey, Aaron.
It's good to hear from you. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning.
My question is, I've asked this before. What do young people do when the system is discriminating against them when they have the right experience and the right qualifications?
Right experience and right qualifications for what?
I mean, in a particular field, whether they're a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, I'm finding that it's almost impossible to get work, and I face discrimination, and it's come to a point where I'm wondering, what do I need to do? I've got the experience, I've got 3 degrees, and I'm wondering, is this a game? What do I need to do to get work,
Are you a person of color?
Yes, I'm of African descent. My family are Jamaican, but I have 3 degrees. I have a master's, a teaching degree, and a degree in art. And I have experience, and I've had to apply for jobs which are way beneath my status, and I can't even get those jobs. So I'm wondering, is this a new tactic where they're leaving certain people of color disadvantaged?
And you're in Spain?
No, I'm in England now, but I just said I'm Aaron from Spain.
You're in England, so you're...
Yeah, I'm in
okay, and there you're having that same problem, is that correct?
It's even worse than it is in Spain, which is quite surprising. It's much worse than I imagined.
Well, according to the code, you are a prisoner of war. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of a movie called Schindler's List?
Yes, I have, sir.
Have you ever seen that movie?
No, but I will.
Well, there's a scene in that movie where a lady steps forward, and she's telling, she's a prisoner of war, and she steps forward and starts telling, this is World War II, she started telling one of the German guards officers about she being qualified to be an architect, and that evidently who is putting up those barracks where they'll stand, they're not putting them up correctly, if I remember the scene correctly. And so she's being an engineer of some type. She's pointing out to them, that's the people, the masters of the prison, that these buildings are not being put up correctly, and that she knows how it should be done, and that they're going to have to tear down a few of the structures and rebuild them in order for them to be put up correctly. And the German officer, now this is one of the commandants of the prison, looked into her explanation and found it to be true. And once he found it to be true, he thanked her, more or less, for her information in correcting the problem that was being presented to him, and then ordered one of the guards, now that she's explained this to us, and we are going to do it correctly, and she has helped us by doing this, shoot her. Which they promptly shot her in the head. Now, that scene in that movie was to make a point. When you're a prisoner of war, that's all you are. And in the system of white supremacy, worldwide, if you're a person of color, you are a prisoner of war. You're a slave. Going back in the ancient history of Spain and England, they are the driving forces of slavery based on color. The people that populated these areas, according to their own, not only admission, they bragged about it. And they're still bragging about it. It hasn't changed. So it doesn't make any difference what your talents are. You're a prisoner of war. You're nobody. You're not a citizen. You're some dislocated trash. You're in the way. And you present them with your skills like the lady did in the movie Schindler's List. And she did it, with firm conviction in what she was saying. And she had to really convince them. And finally they were convinced. But then, after that, they say, yeah, it's not what your skills are. We don't care anything about that. You are an inferior person. You got no business even breathing. So we're going to stop you from breathing right now that you have given her this excellent information, which we are going to use. Bam! And she was dead. Now, this was not just based on fiction, according to many people. They say in what they call the Holocaust, that's a true story. A lot of people say it's not, but they said many of these stories will never be told, and that the ones that are being told are the truth. Why? Because they were talking about being prisoners of war. Lots of people who are prisoners of war are highly skilled. Airplane pilots, shot down all the time. They're highly skilled. They know trigonometry and all of this. And sometimes their skills are used in the prison. Bridge of the River Kwai, you've probably heard of that.
Yes, sir.
Prisoners of war. These skills of the British officer were used by the people who had captured them to build a bridge. And he built an excellent bridge, because the bridge that they put up before had fallen down. That's another movie that makes that point. That's why sometimes you study movies, you get a picture of the real world, even if it's a fictional movie, like most movies are. Because most movies don't know the real truth anyway, because they don't know the truth. In fact, all of history is loaded with things that are not quite the way that they're telling it. Autobiographies, particularly people who write about themselves, they don't tell the whole truth. They tell some facts, but they don't tell the truth. In fact, all history is full of falsehood, but a lot of it is true. And a lot of the points that are made should be picked up. So it's important to study history, including all the lies, because you find that out too in time.
Yes.
Okay.
Aaron, thank you for your phone call. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to add one more thing before I go. I did reflect on the situation, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with how the immigration in England, but I'll keep it short and sweet. When the people from the Caribbean, black, immigrated to England, a lot of people who were skilled, they couldn't get work. And I was laughing to myself because I said, wow, I'm in the same position that my grandparents were 50 years ago. I just wanted to add that in.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yes, sir.
And I hope both of you are in good health.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Again, the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller is worldwide. I do communicate with Aaron. I didn't know that he was going to call today, but he brought up the point of the mistreatment of the black people over in so-called England that goes on worldwide. And Mr. Fuller, it is at this time, even though we've been talking about it all morning, but specifically it is at this time that we need you to talk about your book. So go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
The book is designed for the individual person to do what he or she can wherever he or she may be. If she is in the category, or he is in the category, of being a victim, directly or indirectly, a subject to, servant to, victim of the system of white supremacy, which is a world government.
Yes.
It's the only real world government. All these other labels are false, really. I mean, the government here, government there. The system of white supremacy is the dominant government of the entire planet called Earth in 2019. Now, that statement is either true or false. There are many people assembled here and assembled there, and many different tribes, that say that they are a government. They are minor governments. The only major government is the system of white supremacy, which nullifies all so-called governments of people of color. And they prove it every day by saying, you will do what we say do. You will go where we tell you to go. You will migrate where we tell you to migrate. And where we tell you, don't you dare go there, you better not be caught trying to get there, because we can stop you. You don't know how to do anything without us. We raised you. You are our victims. So the code book is written for victims of this system called, in capital letters, the system of white supremacy. And as a victim, what you can do to replace this system as an individual by the things you do and say every day, because that's how it's got to be done, and it's got to be a worldwide thing. Replace it with what? A system of justice. And so the ingredients in this book that you can get by going to Produce Justice, the ingredients in this book is supposed to help the individual person to think, speak, and act in a manner that will accomplish that. Because otherwise, we're just going to spend an entire existence on this planet complaining about things not being the way it ought to be. That's going to go on forever. But this book that I have written, that you can get by going to producejustice.com, is for the individual person of color to do and say the things that will bring about the type of world, presumably, that should have existed from the very beginning of time. Mistake proof. That's what we're trying to eradicate. All mistakes. And be a problem-solving people rather than a problem-making people that the white supremacist system has made of us. That's why we, like the person that just called in, that's why we have to migrate from one place to another with their permission and be disappointed in that migration. Why? Because they're just playing games with us. And that's going to continue forever. They intend, they got a 500-600-year plan. To just go on and on and on. They do it in increments. We're going to have the people of color here doing this and doing that. The people of color in New York, for the next 20 years, are going to be doing this and that and the other. And then for the next 40 years after that, we're going to start phase 2, where we're going to have them doing this, that, and the other. Never anything that they got planned. They think they got some plans, but we got plans for them.
Yes.
And the people of Botswana, the people of Nigeria, the people of the islands, Jamaica, we got plans for them. They don't have any plans for themselves, so we got plans for them. Because they are what? Our slaves.
Our slaves. Okay.
We don't call them that anymore, but that's what they are.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so producejustice.com.
Producejustice.com. This book should set us on the path, I hope, that's what I wrote it for, to first of all, evaluating what this problem is, for what it really is, and I think I'm telling the truth, and what to do about it that should wrap this thing up if we all do what we should be doing.
Okay.
In record time.
All righty. Okay, let's go to the Gmails. This comes from Mario, Mr. Fuller. He said this. He says, could you please have Mr. Fuller continue the point he just left on before the break about being like stone and ice? Do you remember that, Mr. Fuller? You were talking about stone?
Yeah.
He
I'm talking about being masters of words. That's why I have a word guide. You be the masters of words. Words are nothing but tools. Tools to do what? To accomplish a job. So we're not even calling things by their correct, names. We're just going by in lockstep with what we've been taught. No, you fashion words to do the things that need to be done once you figure out what needs to be done. And just like you fashion any tool, if you want to cut down a tree, you look at the tree. You see how the tree is made. So you make a tool for cutting down the tree if that's what you want to use the tree for. You want to use the tree to make lumber. So you say, how do I make lumber? Well, the first thing I have to do is cut down that tree. Okay. Well, how do I cut down the tree? Now, that's the question. Because all problems and problem solving, and if a problem is going to be solved, comes through the process of questions and answers.
Mm-hmm.
How do you cut down that tree? Well, we'll make something called a saw, and then we will improve that saw. Or we'll make an axe first, and well, that takes a long time. I mean, this is an oak tree. This is a California redwood, and you got an axe? Well, prepare to settle in for a while, because you're going to be here for a while trying to get some lumber out of that tree.
Yes, sir.
But now, if you get what you call a high-powered saw, and you keep making them bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and you get huge machines that have this chainsaw on it of some type, and it's on a tractor, something as big as a large tractor, well, you might be able to take down a lot of trees. You do the same thing with dismantling a political system and a religious system called the system of white supremacy, the most powerful political and religious system ever thought of in the minds of people. So in answer to the question, that's what you do.
All righty.
And you fashion your words that way. Like an example, the word America. We have been saying there's such a thing as America, and there is. But it's a concept. Like Africa is a concept. Like Asia is a concept. And what is that concept? If you want to just put it in one line and draw lines under it, it's the concept of practicing justice. America means a person. It's a person, not a tree, not a mountain. That's not America. That's a tree or a mountain. You got mountains and trees everywhere. No, you have a concept called America. That concept is the practice of justice. The concept of Africa is if it's worth anything at all, and I don't think anybody will disagree with it, if you got an African concept, that African concept better be, in one word, justice.
Justice, okay.
A person that practices justice. If you're going to be an Asian person, you got to be practicing justice. Otherwise, you ain't qualified to be no Asian.
Okay. This comes from Justice Soldier. He says, VGQ, Mr. Fuller, regarding young whites. This is VGQ. He says, Dr. Welsing has a chess game analogy regarding racism. This means that that the black side of the chessboard does not try to negotiate with the white side. Your assignment is to checkmate the white side time and time again. Please ask Mr. Fuller to explain that you do not try to negotiate with a problem. You are supposed to solve the problem.
I can't explain the statement because I didn't make the statement. See, that comes under VGQ. And Dr. Wilson, I worked with her many years, and she makes her statements, and I make mine. So she is reported to have made that statement. So she's no longer with us, and maybe in her writings, and I haven't read all of her writings or listened to all of her speeches. In fact, most of them I haven't. But somewhere she may have explained that. So I would advise the caller to try to gather up whatever writings and listen to whatever speeches she made where someone may have asked that question. What does that actually mean in negotiation and etc.? So that comes under VGQ. She's entitled to make these statements like all victims are entitled to make statements that they make about race, racism, or counter-racism. But each and every victim should do their own explaining. Now, I definitely wouldn't attempt to do that now that she's not here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that would be, that's sacrilegious, you might say, quote, unquote. So I wouldn't even attempt to do that, to explain what she may have meant or what she didn't mean. And fill in the blanks if there are any. I didn't make that statement, so I can't elaborate on that at all. I can't comment.
Transitory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Alrighty, welcome to the second hour of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and we're listening to it over the airwaves of TalkTainmentRadio.com. And this is radio the way it should be heard. 1-877-932-9766 is the number to call, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com. Before I take this call, Mr. Fuller, to go back to that last comment of the first hour when a gentleman wanted to know the comment that Dr. Welsing has allegedly made. It was that she gave a chess game analogy regarding racism. She said this means that the black side of the chessboard does not try to negotiate with the white side. Your assignment is to checkmate the white side time and time again. Please ask Mr. Fuller to explain that you do not try to negotiate with a problem. You are supposed to solve the problem. And that was in regards to Justice Soldier. Mr. Fuller, you were saying under VGQ that she said what she said. Could you explain that for those that are just tuning in?
Well, that's a part of the code. See, and when another victim of white supremacy, according to the code, makes a statement or makes a statement of any kind about race, racism, or counter-racism, all other victims of racism, according to the code, should say, if they are asked about it, if I'm asked about something that Dr. Wilson says, or if Mr. Dorothy Height has said in her writings or in her speeches that's recorded or something, or what any other non-white person says anywhere about race, racism, and or counter-racism, I am duty bound. Now, I made this one up and put it into the code. I'm duty bound to make no comment when asked about what some other victim of racism said about race, racism, and or counter-racism, other than to say, he said what he said, or in the case of a female, she said what she said. Now, a person might ask, well, yeah, you're saying he said what he said, or she said what she said, but what do you have to say about what she said? I have to say that she said what she said.
Yes.
And you keep repeating that. See, we need that because it's very easy to slide into the habit that we have, which is a terrible habit, of saying, well, I don't agree with that, and here we go.
Yes.
Now, it has been proven over and over again. When we do that, it doesn't have a constructive result. That's why we don't do it.
She said what she said.
Yeah.
Period.
See, in other words, one prisoner of war talking about his or her prison conditions and the way that they see it, they're entitled to do that.
Okay.
And I'm not supposed to criticize it or comment on it one way or another.
Other than
to say, he said what he said.
Right. Okay.
Prisoner of war, she said what she said. And if you want her to elaborate or something else to be said about what she said, check with her. Don't check with me.
Right.
I'm not in charge of that.
Yes.
That's off limits for me.
Okay.
Yeah, check with the person that said it. And if they didn't explain it, if they passed away in the case like of Dr. Wilson, and if she didn't explain it further in any of her writings or any of her speeches, and she wrote a lot, and she definitely spoke a lot, and if she didn't explain that in depth, what she meant in answer to that question should go unanswered.
Okay.
By any non-white person on the planet.
Okay. Before we get to, I thought we had the person gone. Okay. We didn't really get to a person on the line. But here's an interesting question, Mr. Fuller, from Nawab. It's a little lengthy, but I'll try to keep it short. It says this, Mr. Fuller, you often discuss how as black people in America, we need to stay away from each other due to the toxicity that exists within us. Now, recently here, I guesstimate in the vicinity of between 25 and 100,000 black Americans who are passionate about getting on code, as you advise us to do, being constructive, eliminating the system of white supremacy and replacing it with a system of justice, or just advocating for black America in general in all the 9 areas of activity, of people activity, are going back and forth with each other on various social media platforms, name calling, being accusatory, just all out divisiveness, largely because 2-3 of the people that these thousands follow had a fallen out of sorts with each other over ego and otherwise petty differences. So again, Mr. Fuller, my question to you is, how would you advise us to navigate disagreements and disputes with each other in an imaginary space where participants never come in contact with each other or even speak with each other over a telephone? Thank you for your response.
We just talked about that. It's big, bold letters in both the Word Guide and the basic code book. VGQ, Victims Guaranteed Qualification. If you are a victim of racism, you're guaranteed the qualification of saying anything that you choose to say about race, racism, and or counter-racism, and no other victim of racism, non-white person, person of color, is supposed to say anything about what you said except these specific words. He said what he said. That's what I do. I do it all the time. People will say, well, this and that and the other about their opinion. And, if somebody asks me, well, what do you think about what that guy said, Fuller? I mean, man, I think what he said was all messed up and all like that. I said, he said what he said. They said, well, do you have anything else to say about it? Are you going back? No. He said what he said. He's entitled to say what he said. He's entitled to say what he said. He's an equal prisoner of war, like I am. He can say what he wants to say about his imprisonment and how he sees it. Or she. He or she. Anywhere. Anytime. They can say what they want to say. I say what I say. They say what they say. We don't have arguments. Arguments are impossible. I'm going to underline that again, according to the code. Arguments about race, racism, and or counter-racism among non-white people are impossible according to the code. Why are they impossible? Because you lock it in. You lock it down by saying VGQ, Victims Guaranteed Qualification. That person is qualified to say everything that they say. That includes black people who say racism doesn't exist. Black people ought to shut up about it. It's just something that they made up, and don't amount to nothing no way. It's just a whole lot of talk. And if they just mind their own business and get on with what they need to be doing and straighten themselves up, everything will be all right. Walking around here talking about the white man this and the white woman this and racism this and white supremacy this is all a bunch of non-existent garbage. Now, any black person that says that in a huge forum, black and white people both present, every black person who hears that should not say anything at all except when somebody asks them to say something, come to the mic and say, oh, you asking me what I have to say about what he just said or what she just said? Oh, that's easy. VGQ.
She said what she said.
He said what he said.
Yes.
She said what she said. What's the big deal? Everything is still just the way it was, so what's the big deal?
Yeah, I got you.
See, we're talking about results. You say, well, that's bad influence and all that. Hey, try it. If you don't believe it'll work, try it. If every black person on the planet did that, why? It's been proven. It don't mean nothing. No way. It's just a bunch of prisoners giving their opinions. Let them. That's all you're doing. We're all prisoners of war. You ain't going nowhere. Mm-hmm. And the white supremacists, they love it when we get into a thing with each other because they say, hey, they're just down there having a big squabble, fixing to get into a fight down there in my cell block. And I'll let them do it, as long as they ain't trying to break out of here. All right.
Okay.
They can go at each other as long as they want to, and I'll go down there and keep them quiet when I get ready to go to sleep. Wow. Just like people might remember the scene Shawshank Redemption when all the guys was hazing the new fella that just came into prison. And
yeah.
So when the guards came in, what happened? They said, if I so much as hear a mouse in here, I'll have you all visit the infirmary. So I'm really in charge of the whole cell block.
Yeah.
And the white supremacists say to the whole black world, you're all down there squabbling about how y'all going to handle me. He said, that's about as absurd as anything can get. Having a squabble among yourselves about the best way and going at each other, calling each other names, falling out about how you're going to handle me. And I'm laughing at all of you.
Yeah. TalkTameAtRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge, worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news and lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here's a couple I'm going to share with you. This is Libby and Wiggins World. Now, these two shows are exclusive to TalkTameAtRadio.com. You can only hear them here. They're good shows. But you would only know, and maybe that's my VGQ on that, but you would only know if you sampled them and see, and then that would be your VGQ. You may like them, you may not like them, but this is the point. You're not going to know unless you try and listen to them or sample them. Those and the other shows that TalkTameAtRadio.com has in the listing of programs, all you got to do is just hit the program button, and there they are. All that from TalkTameAtRadio.com, radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Today, we are discussing the code book, why you need the code book, understanding the code book, like a manual to do and what not to do. And Mr. Fuller has been explaining that and answering your questions right there. Mr. Fuller, you wrote a contemporary counter-racist codified word guide, the importance of words. And one of the things, for example, you brought up in the book, the word guide, on page 330 of the word guide, I just had this marked down, said, refined racism. Now, for those that don't know what refined racism, this is just an excerpt from the book. Mr. Fuller, what is refined racism, or what are you talking about when you say refined racism?
That's on page 330.
Yes, sir.
And refined racism is the fourth stage of racism. Racism goes through four stages. Establishment as stage one. That's getting it started. Now, I don't know when it started. Some people say 400 years ago. Some people say 600. Some people say 2,000. Some people say 6,000. And other people might say even farther back than that. I simply say I don't know, because I don't. Because everything that I hear, I wasn't here when it got started, apparently. Logic kind of tells me that. And so with everybody debating about when it started, I simply say I don't know, because I don't. But it started somewhere, sometime. Somebody got the idea of coming up with a system, a world system, based on dominating and mistreating people based on nothing but color, the color of the skin, and characteristics associated with that color. And they call it racism. And it turned out to be the strongest form of that was white supremacy, which it was established. That's stage one. They got it started. Somebody thought it up. Just like all things that get started, somebody thinks it up among people. All right? And they made it into a system, a world system, that covered all 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Because whoever thought up the system of white supremacy said people are engaged in these areas of activity. So when it comes to people of color, if we get absolute control over what they do in all of these areas of activity, we'll have control of them forever, because we will be dictating to them what to do and what not to do, what to say and what not to say, and how to think in all of these 9 areas of major activity. And so they accomplished that over a period of time. That was the establishment phase. Then the maintenance phase was keeping it going. It's like any other business, because racism is a world business. It's a system that's a world business. So they kept the business going. Once you get you running a cafe, once you get it established, you want to maintain your business, pay your bills and whatnot, and turn on the light switches and see to it that the refrigeration is in order, that the food is kept. You got a cafe business maybe, or a grocery store. All right, so you're maintaining it. Then the third stage is you expand your business. You go around and say, "Oh, I'm going to, I'm a corner the market." So the system of white supremacy cornered the market on racism in the form of a thing called white supremacy. That's what they did. Then they got to the fourth stage, the stage that you're asking about, refinement. Okay, now we put the finishing touches on it. We improved the signs outside. All right? Hey, we got some pretty nice signs out there, but let's come up with some better ideas of some bigger signs, bolder signs that will draw people in, catch their eye, bait them in. All right? We're going to improve that. All right? That's the refinement stage. Put some more lights on it, some more bells and whistles. Make it look pretty. Make it look appetizing. All right? Bring them on in. Haul them in here. All right? That's the refinement stage. You've been expanding it. Now the refinement is the finishing touches. Let's put a little more paint on that back section over there, and let's kind of spruce up that side section, and let's kind of prop up. Well, let's redo part of the sections. Because we didn't quite fine tune it like it should have been in the first place. So this is the section could do some more fine tuning. So we'll do some fine tuning in the area of labor. Mm-hmm. We'll do some fine tuning in the area of sex. We'll do some expanding in the area of sex, like they're doing now. All right? And we'll dump that on these dummies. All right? These dark people of the world who don't have an idea of even what we're doing, not to say anything about how we're doing it. They haven't even figured out what we're doing. And so that's great. It shows how refined we are. And don't call them by the N-word anymore. That's a part of the refinement. Call them Mr. and Mrs. Tell them that they are the president of this place and that place. Mm-hmm. Put a crown on their heads, all right? Tell them that they are now royal, okay? That they are now part of a great dynasty. Tell them anything and give them absolutely nothing. But pure hell.
Wow. Okay. Woo, that was heavy. Let's take a phone call. Caller, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Hello, good morning. Mr. Fuller, speaking of the N-word, I've seen several instances this week alone of white people calling black people the N-word, mm-hmm. and a lot of it has been met with violence. So one of them is a video where a man actually picked a woman up and slammed her for calling him the N-word. Another one even said that a man killed a white man for calling him the N-word. And there's others where people get to shouting and arguing. So I wanted to ask you. I've heard you in previous programs say that you could be called the N-word 300 times and it doesn't faze you. So I wanted to ask you to please explain why we shouldn't let the N-word faze us and why. Thank you.
Words are nothing but tools. So if somebody's using a tool against you, you just look at the tool and look at who's using it And look at what they're trying to do with the tool. So a tool is a word. Or a word is a tool. Or a word can be a tool can be a physical thing, like a saw, or a hammer, or an axe. So you look at a word like a tool, because that's what it is, and you make a judgment about what that tool is supposed to do. Now, we have been told that when somebody calls a black person by the N word, it's supposed to do something. That word is supposed to do something. Now, what is it supposed to do? It's supposed to, initially, it might do a lot of things, but initially, it's supposed to make the black person feel unworthy. That's what that tool is supposed to do. The N word. The magic word, as they used to call it. Okay? Lots of action is supposed to come behind that magic word. That's the word that gets everybody. I mean, hey, you're in heart attack mode now. Somebody used that word, and that somebody was white. Okay? Now, the code says you look at that word just like you look at any other word. America, the word June, that's the, title of a month. Tree, that's a word. That's a title that somebody gave to something that grows out of the ground. I mean, we know what a tree looks like. Okay, so words have definitions. What is the definition of the N word? It doesn't have one. But you apply it. You're applying a tool without a definition. And that's what makes it magic. When you look in the average dictionary, it will say what? Nigger. Now, what does it say the definition of that so-called magic word is? They say it's a derogatory term for someone of Negroid, of African, of dark continent, etc., 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 ancestry, etc., 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 or, and it gives all kinds of synonyms, all right, a person of color, etc., etc., etc. That's what the word, a derogatory term. Now, here is the power in that word. It doesn't tell you why it's derogatory. That's what gives it its power. And scholars all over the world have not seen through that. I mean, you're talking about a miracle. All these years, that word has gotten black people upset. When they look at the definition, it says a derogatory term. But the power of the word comes from it doesn't have a definition, except it's supposed to be derogatory when directed to a person of color. So, in looking at these different definitions in different dictionaries, I said, you know what? The power of that word comes from it not having a concise definition. See, they don't tell you why it's derogatory. See, that word W-H-Y, that's in every definition, somewhere. It's implied. Why? If they say derogatory, they tell you why. The N word does not tell you why. And so that's what the white supremacists understand. That's why they can say that word and laugh. Because they know that like a black person that grabs hold of that word, it's going to be like a dog chasing its tail. You're going to wear yourself out. I mean, you're going crazy about something that you don't even know what you're doing. And so the code says the way you react to that word, you just do like you do the word America or Africa or Asia, which is what I've done in the code book. You give it a definition. you give it a definition that'll work for you. That's what you do with any tool. You fashion a tool, if you want to cut down that tree, in a way that you can cut down that tree in the way you want it cut down. You do the same thing with words. Because a word is a tool, just like a pair of pliers or a saw. That's what it is. So, what is the definition if you look in the code book for that word, that magic word? It says, it's the definition of Neely Fuller. And what is Neely Fuller? He's a victim of white supremacy.
All right.
That's the definition
Got to
of
leave
that word. When you start using that word starts working for you, not against you.
Okay. Got to leave it right there. TalkTameAtRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTameAtRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. Podcasts are available. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. We're going to talk about Main Camp. What? Yeah, Main Camp. All that and more coming up next on TalkTameAtRadio.com.
TalkTameAtRadio.com is proud to present the compensatory concept. It is an effective system for countering the effects of white supremacy. TalkTameAtRadio.com is able to carry the first hour. However, the cost for the second hour is exceeding our limited budget. That is why we ask for your kind assistance in keeping the second hour on the air. If you believe like we do, help us in this struggle for justice. Go to the gold donate button on the TalkTameAtRadio.com web page and hit the gold donate button. That's the gold donate button. And please donate. Help us to keep the second hour of the compensatory concept on the air. Thank you.
Think you can't afford life insurance? Think again. You might be surprised at how affordable it can be. 80% of Americans overestimate the cost of life insurance. Maybe it's time to swap a few small expenses for some big peace of mind. Life insurance can protect what matters most, and it's the right thing to do. Let's talk today. So call me, Marvin Smith, at American Family Insurance at 614-986-3105. You can also visit my website at marvinsmithinsurance.com. American Family Life Insurance Company, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin, 53783.
For the best home fragrance and beauty products, shop Ash Kickin online.
That's ASHKICKIN.
Made with 100% natural quality ingredients and handcrafted with your family in mind, Ash Kickin products are better than those other guys. Ash Kickin candles, incense, body butter, face moisturizer, and hair moisturizer are priced just right, and you can get yours at 10% off with coupon code TALK17. Support this 100% black-owned business and get your home and body smelling and feeling all right.
That's ASHKICKIN.
Shop Ash Kickin online at www.ashkickin.com.
Stand by for an important announcement for renters and investors. You have probably heard about this bad economy and high foreclosure rate. I'm here to bring you hope. Every foreclosed property is a blessing or a deal for a new buyer or investor. These properties are selling every day all over Central Ohio for several reasons. They are equity rich, worth tens of thousands of dollars above their price. There is down payment money available and remodeling funds if needed. Don't let the doom and gloom news keep you from your dream of home ownership. Call Linco Realty today at 865-9614. That's 865-9614. Call now. Always remember, these times, like all times, are good times if we but know what to do with them. They also have programs for investors who want to get off the couch and run with the big dogs. Call Linco today at 865-9614 or log on to repohomeslist.com.
Looking for something special for your club or group? Take a trip. Cruise planners will help you plan the event of a lifetime. Explore exotic places from Africa to Asia. Bermuda to Las Vegas to Hawaii, with special offers that make it affordable and exciting. Click on to www.greatgetawaytrips.com for great deals, or call today at 614-707-SHIP. That's 614-707-7447.
This is Al Edmondson, owner of a Cutter Brother Rest Barbershop. I'm calling on all barbers and beauticians. It's time for us to unite as one. We can serve our communities better together. Join the Ohio Black Barber Beauty Network. For more information, visit www.obbn.org or call 614-427-3226 to get more information. Be the change that you want to see in your community. Join our network.
Sex Code War by Kahari Inaharo. The author of the Essence magazine bestseller Race Code War is releasing his second book, Sex Code War. Be on the lookout for Sex Code War.
If you or someone you know is abusing drugs and or alcohol and want to stop the abuse, contact APDS at 1409 East Livingston Avenue. Office hours are 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily and 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday. APDS is certified by the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services and primarily funded through the Adam H. Board. Fees are based on your income and Medicaid is always accepted. For more information, call 614-253-4448.
Here's an idea. You've heard of the notion of pay it forward? It comes from the 2000 movie Pay It Forward. Basically, the premise is helping someone with no expectations of payback, providing assistance to someone, passing information on, simply doing a good deed for a total stranger, and instead of allowing them to pay it back, ask them to pay it forward. Doing favors for other people and asking them to do the same. The principle is the same as multi-level marketing, except that instead of soap or vitamins, it's generosity between strangers that is being passed on. Pay It Forward is mentoring, it's volunteering in your community, it's shoveling a neighbor's snow, or cutting an elderly person's grass for them, or taking a senior to the store. Don't wait for someone else to do something good. Do it yourself. It starts with you. Talktainment Radio strongly embraces the notion of pay it forward. In fact, we just did.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Go ahead. Make my day.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You got the power.
TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And today we've been talking about the code book and why you should have the code book. And Mr. Fuller's been given his presentation on that and answers to your questions by phone and also your Gmails. And speaking, and to get in contact with the show again, 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. Going to the Gmails, Mr. Fuller, and we have an international flavor today, which is good. This comes from Anthony McCann. He's from England, or Great Britain, or the concept. Anyway, this is what he said. He said, Dear Mr. Fuller, I'm currently reading Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler, and I came across a very profound passage in the book which reads as follows, quote, as things stand today, vast spaces still lie uncultivated all over the surface of the globe. Those spaces are only waiting for plowshares, and it is quite certain that nature did not set those territories apart as the exclusive pastures of any nation or race to be held unutilized in reserve for the future. Such land awaits the people who have the strength to acquire it and diligence to cultivate it. End of quote. Mr. Fuller, could you please talk about the fact that borders and countries are insignificant to the white supremacist and how they have taken over land and territories by force and deception without little resistance from their victims? Kind regards, Anthony McKinn of England.
Yes, sir. The white supremacists only recognize borders that they draw. The philosophy of the white supremacists, there are no borders in the entire universe. Not to say anything about the here on the planet. No such thing as borders, except the ones that they draw. They make the borders. They tell people what country you belong to. They do that. And then they will evaporate a country. They'll just simply say, this country no longer exists. I mean, or I'm going to rename this particular area by something that I want to call it. Or they'll let you name it if you're a person of color, but they'll still recognize that doesn't mean anything when it comes to a person of non-color, a white person, a person classified as white. Borders to the white supremacists are non-existent in the universe when it comes to people. Now, borders exist in, as a natural thing, like mountains. I mean, you can say that the sea is a border, but when it comes to people, the white supremacists say, hey, these borders mean nothing to me. You're talking about your sovereignty. You dark-skinned people. Are you kidding? You don't have any such thing as that. I mean, not even your tribes are borders when it comes to me. I march through there anytime I get ready. Take what I want, your females, your crops, your whatever. I'm a white supremacist. Do you know what that means? I'm God when it comes to you. All of you things moving around in my way. Unless I say that you are going to be placed where I say you're going to be placed. You go where I tell you to go. You don't tell me where to go anytime. I go where I please. You go where I send you, person of color. Get that through your thick skull with your primitive self. You're not sophisticated. You're not a grand thinker. I think on a universal level. You're talking about your little patch of ground on the planet. I got patches of ground all over the entire universe. It's mine. I'm a white supremacist. That, on a grandiose scale, is what Adolf Hitler apparently meant. Hey, you all don't know anything about anything. You're sitting on this land. You're talking about it's your land. It's mine if I say it is. And I can back it up. And the white supremacists, collectively, even though they squabble among themselves about, like all gangsters do, they have gangsters squabble among themselves. That's why the movies Godfather are so popular. All right? They squabble among themselves, but the people that they squabble about are not even on the radar. They're not even counted. So they fight each other like Hitler fought other white people about what? You all don't know anything about how to handle these people of color like I do. The white supremacists have always fought about that. How they're going to handle the darkest. But borders for a white person in the system of white supremacy? Are you kidding? You got to be joking. They don't exist. Don't even think like that. That's poisonous thinking to the system of white supremacy. Borders are for non-white people. You stay pent up where you are until I tell you that you can move from this street to the next street, from this body of water to the next body of water. You don't go no place, darky, without I say so. Why? I'm not only the master of you, colored people, I'm the master of the universe. And the only thing that's master of me is the master of the entire universe. But the universe as you dark people know it, I'm the only master. There's no other.
Wow.
White supremacy.
TalkTameAtRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTameAtRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And we've been talking about the code book, the code, why you should have a code, understanding the code, asking questions about the code, living the code. But it is at this time that we ask Mr. Fuller to give you information on the code book, how you can obtain your copy so we can get them flying off the shelf. Mr. Fuller, go ahead, please.
You can get the book by going to producejustice.com. That's the website, producejustice.com, because we're supposed to be producing a product. That's our assignment. That product is called justice, which according to what I've written in the code book, and here again, we're talking about words on this program, I made up a definition for the word justice that I thought would stand the test of time, because that's what you have to do. Words are tools, so you make up words and give them definitions, or you use words that are already here. Doesn't make any difference what words you use. Words are nothing but sounds. That's all. Or they're just letters, that when you speak them, they come out a certain way of what we call sound. But they're ways of communicating. That's all they are. They're just tools. You fashion tools the way that you see fit in order to do the job that needs doing, hopefully. The job that should be done. And make sure that your words do a constructive job. That the result is always constructive. Keep that word in mind. So I made up a definition in 1994 for the word justice because I was not satisfied with the words, the definitions of the word justice that I had been exposed to, because I didn't think that they were doing the job that they should do. They weren't specific enough. So the word justice, which is the name of the website where you get the book, Produce Justice, and this word is in the code book that I'm talking about. It means two parts, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. And the book is designed to help the individual person without having to check with anybody. You just check the code book. And the code book is supposed to be based on logic. I apologize for that noise.
That's okay, Mr. Fuller. Continue.
Yes. The code book is supposed to help the individual person of color, the non-white person, the black person, red person, yellow person, whatever the white supremacists say, or the whole spectrum of colors when it comes to people, because that's what white supremacy is about. You're supreme if you're white. Now, to counteract the system of white supremacy and replace it with a system of justice, that's what the code book is designed to do. For each individual because there's no such thing as that magic collective in a system of white supremacy. That thing that we call the masses is going to solve the race problem. What are the masses? What do you mean? They're individual people, prisoners of war. If you're a person of color, you're a prisoner of war. And you're in a world prison called the planet Earth. That's a prison under the system of white supremacy. The only government on the entire planet that counts as a government, regardless of what anybody else says. Now, that's either true or false and can be debated. But I think that after 1,000 days of debate, you'll have to come to the conclusion that the system of white supremacy is the world government, if truth be told. A system that's based on mistreating people, dominating and mistreating people based on color. Okay. That's the world government. Mm-hmm. You can get the book by going to producejustice.com, and it's supposedly help us, people of color, to rid the world of racism and replace it with a system of justice. Okay. Universal man, universal woman.
All right, producejustice.com is the website. Okay, this is what I'm going to do here. See, I got a phone call, and then I would like to hit this last subject and ancestry ads, but let's get the phone call first. Go ahead, caller. You're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please, with your question.
Hello, Mr. Fuller. I agree with you on the fact that, and have experienced that if a black person asks a white person the truth, they will tell you, especially when they know that you refuse to lie to yourself. Mr. Fuller, you stated earlier an analogy that white people usually hate black folks and they really want to throw up when a black person comes into a room. I want you to answer, how do you reconcile that they have this hatred of the black person and at the same time they seek out black people for sexual play, or they go way out to remote islands where there's the non-white black person, a group of people minding their own business, and then they go into there and dominate and control them? Could you please reconcile those two, hating and then simultaneously pulling them close?
If I understand the word reconcile, you mean
how do you
contradictions in their behavior?
Contradiction. Yes, the contradiction of, I can't stand these people, they make me sick, I don't like them, but yet I'm going to seek them out for sex. I'm going to seek them out and go to an island where they're minding their own business and go in and just mess around there with them. What is that contradiction?
Yes, that's the way people act when they don't have a reason for doing what they're doing that is constructive. That's the way all people act. They seek out the people. Black people do that with each other because black people can't stand each other. See, so the white supremacists do the same thing. They'll say, we can't stand those people. Get them away from me. Mm-hmm. And when they look around and they don't see anything but white people, then they start off this way. Now, you can just watch it. I mean, there are a lot of people who can confirm this. They'll say, oh, we don't have any black people around here. We used to have them, but we forced them out of this area. We don't have any. And I'm proud to say, we don't, when you drive up and down the highways and whatnot, and you wave at people and whatnot, all of your neighbors are white. We are all white. Everybody's white. But then, when they get together and have their beer parties and barbecues and all like that, or go fishing, all of their jokes are about the dark people who are no longer around them. Right. But they got jokes about it, which means whatever's in your mind, you're still with it. Okay? So now, after a little while, they get tired of the jokes among themselves. They say, yeah, we've told all those thousands of jokes about black people, all of those Negro jokes. Mm-hmm. But we're getting bored with that. So let's go get a few real Negroes that we can tell these jokes to. See, that's how they do. They'll go searching for you. All right? And they spend all that time getting away from you. Now they go in and search for you. they'll go among you. First, they'll say, we're tourists, or something like that. All right? And this is how they think. Okay, this is where their mind works. And then they'll say, oh, okay, now we're around some real ones now, and we'll tell these jokes, this arsenal of jokes that we got, we'll spread it among them. Even having them tell these same jokes on each other, all right? And we'll laugh. We'll get a bigger laugh than the laughs that we had when we were just telling those jokes to each other. Now, since we're here, all right, let's do some other things, okay? So they lay around with the females and whatnot and get babies and whatnot because you are never out of their minds.
I got
That's
you.
it. Yes.
We're never out their minds.
And that's why they do so many confusing and contradictory things. I mean, they say they hate you, but they'll come looking for you so that they can kill you eventually. All right? They'll start off saying, well, we're going to be your friend, like they always do, give you some mirrors and some pretty cloth to look at or some headdress, all right, like they do among the Indians and whatnot. And they give you some shiny objects and whatnot that they be fascinated with, or some pieces of cloth to be fascinated with, some shoes to be fascinated with, and be fighting about the brands and all like that. All right, we got them going. Now let's see what else we can think of to keep them hopping. Why? Because that's the only reason we exist. It's called white supremacy. How can you be a white supremacist and you don't have anybody to be supreme over? They understand that principle.
Is that why you're saying they would never kill off all black people and just get
No, you're going to kill off the product that makes you happy?
I got you.
Kicking black people around makes them happy.
Gotcha.
We are their barometer for existence.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, Mr.
I
Fuller.
either told the truth or I didn't.
That's right. Okay. I don't know, next week's show, I don't want to do it now because we need for you to explain this, but somebody wrote in about ancestry ads and gave a, matter of fact, JR did. We're going to talk about, hopefully, and I put it down for our opening discussion for next week. But anything, Mr. Fuller, as we have about 3 minutes to go, you want to add to the importance of why universal man, universal woman must have a code?
Oh, well, everything in the universe is about a code. Everything that works. An electrical code, a plumbing code, even the people who call themselves Marines. If you saw a movie called A Few Good Men.
Yes.
They said that black guy that was in there said what? He said, we have a code. And so Tom Cruise says, code? What code? He says, unit, God, country, something like that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. He said, that's our code, sir. He says, and so the lawyer, who played by Tom Cruise, said, you want me to go in the court? You're on trial for your life. And you want me to go in that court talking about some company that you're in, some unit that you're in, and your code, and you're on trial for your life, where they may not take into account your code of honor, as you say, at all. And he says, well, you can do what you want to, but it's our code, which means I don't deviate. Y'all can do what you want to. Now, a code can be for better or for worse. All right? The white supremacists have a code. You better believe they have one. It turned out to be the most powerful code ever thought up in the history of religion and politics by the people of the planet called Earth. There's no religion or no political system that has ever existed in the recorded history of the entire planet called Earth than the system of white supremacy. And it is successful because they have a white code, meaning certain things that you do and say and certain things that you don't do and say.
All right.
That's all a code is.
All right, Mr. Fuller, thank you. We have to leave it right there. TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio and radio the way it should be heard. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com.